Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to look over Cleanspark, a couple things here and there regarding Cleanspark, and also some recent Bitcoin news, as well as the chart for both Cleanspark and Bitcoin. So let's not waste any time, let's get right into this one. And first off, focusing on Bitcoin. As you may know, the SEC is suing both Coinbase and Binance and calling certain cryptos securities. Well, apparently Congress has a different view, and this may be all just acting, this may be all smoke and mirrors to make them look like they're for the little guy, for the crypto investor, but Congress seems to be opposed to Gary Gensler's recent rule in the SEC, recent attack of crypto. And here's a quote by Richie Torres: "The latest enforcement action against Coinbase is an egregious example of regulation by enforcement. It demonstrates a complete contempt for Congress, which is in the process of developing a framework." That's right, Congress will be looking over crypto, and the congressman also adds that Gary Gensler's current position on crypto is a stark contrast to how he used to be. He used to actually teach about blockchain at MIT, and Torres says his view on the law has been constantly changing. Mr. Gensler has gone from a crypto cheerleader to a crypto skeptic. He's portraying crypto as the villain in order to portray himself as a political hero. We also have Cynthia Loomis, Bill Hagerty, and Congressman French Hill saying that the SEC's recent crackdown is basically a cover your ass approach to essentially distract from its failure to prevent the collapse of FTX. And the congressman emphasized that we need this clear, concise statutory framework. And then he goes on to say that's why we introduced this bill. If we had this bill in place, then the SEC wouldn't have to take the actions they've taken. So I do think over the next couple of months, a lot is going to go on that may shape the future of crypto as a whole. And hopefully they kick Gary Gensler out, or at the very least, don't give him the overreach that he's gotten as the chair of the SEC. And they're also thinking about giving, equal share in control to the SEC and the CFTC, but as of recently, they both haven't really been working together. You have one saying that we deserve control and the other saying we deserve control. And to me, that just seems like trouble. They won't be able to agree on anything. But at the very least, with the SEC not at 100% control, there could be some checks and balances there at the very least. But there's definitely a lot more to look at there. I will leave you some links down below so you can do some research on what's going on with Congress and crypto. But before getting deep into Cleanspark, I did want to show you what's going on Bitcoin on the chart. So let's take a quick look. And I personally think we are reaching a breakout very soon. To which direction? Well, the break of a pattern will tell us. Right now, we're in a longer term uptrend. You see these yellow lines here we've been bouncing across. But after we hit our high back in April, we've been just creating this downtrend. These trends are about to converge. Bitcoin is going to tighten up and we're going to have a breakout to either direction. So I highly recommend you keep an eye on both of these patterns. And I do think at the latest by June, we will have a dramatic move either to the upside or to the downside. And it may depend on this news with Congress and what's going on with the SEC. And of course, we have also something else huge coming up. Now we're about 10 months or so away. And this is the Bitcoin halving. And once this happens, the supply will get cut back dramatically, the upcoming supply. And this sums it up very well. What's the significance of the Bitcoin block halving? The halving decreases the amount of new Bitcoins generated per block. This means that the supply of new Bitcoins is lower, making buying more expensive. And in normal markets, lower supply with steady demand usually leads to higher prices. Since the halving reduces the supply of new Bitcoin and demand usually remains steady, the halving has usually preceded some of Bitcoin's largest runs. And you can see here the previous three halvings. After the halving happens, we typically see a huge run towards the middle point. And then comes crypto winter with a little bit of a run in anticipation of the halving. I do think this catalyst can't be ignored, and the future decisions in Congress could be the fuel to this fire to get things really rolling. Now, I also wanted to show you Cleanspark on the chart. We have been pulling back a bit from our 511, 510 top, and it looks like we're about to fail the 50 MA. I do think any more small pull on Bitcoin could bring Cleanspark down to the low threes, and that would conveniently place it on this support line that we've created. And we also have the 200 MA backing this up as well. By the time we reach this point, the 200 MA will be very likely right in line with this ascending channel here. And I also wanted to add that we have one more month until we kind of get a glimpse into what our revenue will be. We had our April and our May mining update, and I'm going to go over the math on those and tell you what basically we need for revenue to hit this expectation of about 51.7 million. But going back a bit, you'll see that we've been consistently growing revenue for the last couple of quarters. And after the period ending in September of 2022, we have been seeing sequential revenue growth ever since, and they are currently expecting a record-breaking quarter. Now, we do have a bit of a glimpse into the future, what they're expecting for this revenue and what we need for June. And I have a side note for you regarding June in a second here, but April and May, we pulled in 11.8 million, then 12.9 million. They're sitting at 24.7 million so far. And if you subtract that 24.7 million from the 51.7 million that's expected for this revenue in this quarter, basically in June, they're going to need to pull in about 27 million. Just glancing at that, that definitely seems like a far reach. And I do suspect at the very least they will have to sell more Bitcoin than they mined in the month of June to meet those expectations. But I also wanted to show you something that will help them out at the end of June. And this was mentioned in our May mining update. Cleanspark said that miners are arriving daily, with all units expected to be at the facility by the end of the month, meaning June. Racking has begun and energization is expected to begin in the second half of June. So it could be at the very last second in June that they get these machines online and hashing. It could be somewhere towards the middle of the month. And they may dramatically increase their hash rate, bringing in more revenue and making it so they don't have to sell as much Bitcoin as we might think when you compare how much they mine to how much they sell. But I'm curious what you think. How do you think this will play out? Are we going to see a dramatic increase in hash rate by the end of June? Do you think they're going to meet this 51.7 million revenue expectation? I personally think for this to happen, they are going to have to get more machines going on before the end of June, as well as likely selling more Bitcoin than they mine. Now, how do I feel about that? Well, I'd personally rather that they start holding more and more Bitcoin. And, you know, from a Wall Street perspective, it looks great that they're just giving these crazy, huge projections on revenue and they're constantly growing their revenue. But I would rather they take a step back and really focus on holding that Bitcoin, even if it means some lackluster quarters, you know, some type of revenue that we've seen before, not some huge new record-breaking revenue for the sake of making a record-breaking revenue. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, you might be a shorter-term investor and really want to see really good revenue numbers so that Wall Street starts piling in and seeing that the sequential revenue growth is going to continue. Well, I do think even if they don't hit this 51.7 million, we are still going to see quarter-over-quarter revenue growth, and all they really need to do is beat about 42 million, which is what they reported last quarter. So I do think even if they don't hit this 51.7 million, we will at least see well over 42 million, which they only need about $15 million in the month of June to hit that. But let me know down below, are they going to be well over 50 million in revenue when they report this quarter? Or do you think that's a little too far-fetched? I do think it's possible, but they will have to sell a dramatic amount of Bitcoin, and that would erase some of the progress they made in the previous months, adding to their HODL balance. But thanks as always for watching, guys. I appreciate you, and I'll see you later.